There's some pretty big news to discuss today. As Elliotte Friedman has come out recently and reported that the Toronto Maple Leafs could be looking to bring back a couple of their key forwards. So I'm going to break that down in this episode, as well as a few of those players on the Leafs. They expressed more interest in returning to Toronto next season. So we'll break all that down. But before we do, a quick reminder to hit the subscribe button if you're a part of the 80% who aren't subscribed. You're on the road to 9,000. If you enjoy daily Leafs content, sometimes 3 to 4 videos a day, you're not going to want to miss anything. So hit that button. We're very close to 9,000. Thank you. It would mean the world to Darius and I. And Darius, let's get into it. Let's get into some positive stuff today because the reports have come out highlighting that the Maple Leafs could be interested in bringing back a couple of their key unrestricted free agents, which specifically Max Domi and Tyler Bertuzzi. And when you look at the kind of UFAs here, we're going to be focusing on Domi and Bertuzzi today, but there's going to be a hefty amount of turnaround for this Leafs team no matter what happens with the UFAs and RFAs. But let's just get into what Tyler Bertuzzi started with at the media day the other day, 2 days ago, by saying, and he said he's open to re-signing with the Leafs and his family loved it here, which was good. But then this is the big report here from Elliotte Friedman saying that Bertuzzi originally discussed a longer-term deal with Toronto last summer, but decided to go 1 year to see how it goes. And he has heard Bertuzzi really enjoyed playing in Toronto and that the team wants him back. Now, that's a bit of an interesting one because we hadn't really heard that before about the team wanting him back, but if there is, it seems like the Leafs want Tyler Bertuzzi back. And the question now is what the cap it'll be, how much it'll be, if it's multi-year. There's a lot of questions right now.
A lot of questions surrounding Tyler Bertuzzi re-signing, and I think that's a good thing that, we're talking about it in a positive light at least, and there's a lot of moving parts. What does the cap hit look like? That's going to be the major thing, I think, because he's going to want term. He's not going to sign another 1 to 3 year deal or something like that. I feel like he's going to want a couple more years to stay in Toronto. And I thought he brought a lot of really good stuff this season. I thought he was a pretty effective player. Yes, he's put up more points in the past, excuse me, but he plays a different role with the Maple Leafs than with other teams. So I think that's fine, really. But I love what he brought, and I love what he did in the playoffs. He kind of tied up Brad Marchand for the most part. Obviously, Brad Marchand's a great player. He's going to break through, but I thought he did an effective job at that. The Leafs had other problems going on in the playoff series. So he was an effective player. And going back to last summer, I thought it was a little weird that he signed the 1 year, the prove it deal, I guess, just to kind of see how it was in Toronto. So he wasn't tied up long term, and maybe he could get more money after this year, which I think is exactly going to happen. So we'll just have to see how it plays out. Obviously, you don't want to tie up too much money in Tyler Bertuzzi and for a long time as well. So they're going to have to play it by ear. But it is good news that he came out of this season saying, I love it here. I want to stay here. And the team is feeling neutral about it. So I think that's good. That's positive news.
Yeah, it seems like most players have wanted to return to Toronto. It's a matter of if the Leafs fans want them to return. And you're looking at, again, the players here. It's going to be interesting to see how they kind of handle it going forward with all these players because, I mean, there's a few of these guys that maybe they won't bring back, maybe they will bring back, specifically the goalies. They'll probably part ways with most of them. But, yeah, look at some of the RFAs as well. So there's going to be a lot to discuss going forward regarding this. But Bertuzzi, that is good. The Leafs are open to re-signing him, and he wants to come back. I'm just worried about how much that's going to cost and if they're are going to run it back with the core four. I don't know if I'd run it back with the exact same team. But let's move on now to Max Domi, who's expressed interest in playing for the Leafs as a dream come true and desires to return, which means he wants to come back, but says he will leave negotiations to his agent, and Domi will officially become a UFA on July 1st. Now, Max Domi, I'm a bit more excited about. He had a very solid, especially decent or very good playoff run. You mentioned Game 5 with the playoff, or the face-off, sorry. He was an absolute animal out there. He's a guy who wants to come back, probably will be cheaper than Bertuzzi, and a report, or he can see what he spoke out on. He basically said he wants to come back. He loves everything about the team, and he thinks the team has everything everything it takes to do something special, which is up for debate. And then I'd love to help them do that, but obviously it's beyond my control, so I leave that up to my agent and management here. Domi's a more interesting one. I like to think that the Leafs are going to bring Domi back. He provided grit. He provided, two-way everything. He was doing very good out there, and he was one of the highlights of the second half of the season, I'll say.
Yeah, and there are some holes in Max Domi's game, but listen, he's a great player. He knows how to get it done. He's gone far in the playoffs with other teams before. He's a player I think you need to be able to win, honestly. I think he couldn't help the Leafs in that way. And his dad played for the Leafs. He grew up here as a fan cheering for the Leafs. I love that stuff. I love when guys who grew up here end up playing for the Leafs and love it here. It's just a nice feeling and give it their all for the crest on the sweater. So I love Max Domi. I think he's the most likely out of everyone to re-sign. The contract will look different, of course. He's probably going to get a bit of a raise, but that's okay. Salary cap's going up, stuff like that. So a lot of movement there, but that's all good. I think you have to try and retain him, and I think he wants to come back. I think he would like to be a Maple Leaf probably for the rest of his career, right? Unless something dramatic happens. But I think it would be a great fit again. And like you mentioned, he was a beast in certain situations that they put him in throughout the season, especially in playoffs. Not really a natural center. They threw him in center the one game. He won a bazillion faceoffs, right? He came up big in certain moments, and I think that's great. Yes, there's holes in his game defensively in certain areas, but I think he can really help the team. And if they want to get help in those areas, go acquire other players. They have a lot of money coming off the books, so I think you have to look at retaining. If you can't both of these guys, I think Max Domi is the most likely one to return.
Yeah, that's what it seems like based on what Friedman's kind of reporting as well, even though he did say they want to bring Tyler Bertuzzi back as well. And this is also kind of some of the grit that he brings. He said the regular season is irrelevant. He said playing for the Leafs, of course, was a dream come true. But these are the comments you kind of want. I mean, Max Domi, he's been in the playoffs a few times, and he's done well in the playoffs for a couple of years. And I'm sure he's as disappointed as anyone that the Leafs couldn't even win one round with the team that they had. But the fact that they even, they still lost round one and he absolutely wants to come back kind of goes to show that this might be a guy who's locked up long term maybe for the Toronto Maple Leafs. And I'll ask you this. Obviously, we have all these free agents here. What would your contract, our ideal contract be for a guy like Max Domi or even Tyler Bertuzzi if you want to discuss both of them? Because, and I mean, this is assuming we keep Mitch Marner. I would presume, even though they're probably going to trade him, as of now, he is on the team for next season at a $10+ million cap hit. So, knowing all the priorities, what would you kind of be okay with for a Max Domi type contract? And I don't know if he's going to take a team-friendly contract. That's yet to see. You can see here. What do you think of the contract will look like? Their prediction, 4 years, $17 million. Are you along those lines, or do you think it'll take a little bit more or a little bit less?
No, I think that's about right. It could be even a little less. I think. I wonder if he just goes 4 million flat and he takes the hometown discount or whatever you want to call it. But I think he's most likely to take a discount out of the two and want to stay and somewhere in that area. I don't think you go to 5 million. I think he's around that area, a $3 to $4 million player. I think he was signed 3 million this year. So I think he's in that area. And of course, if you give him term, then obviously he's going to want to re-sign more. Tyler Bertuzzi is probably in the same ballpark of what he was making this year. He's probably going to want like 5 or 6 years to take him to that last contract. So I would assume it's in that ballpark, maybe 6 million. I don't know. I don't have any insight into that. And I have no idea what his agent is thinking because he is a very valuable player. And I think he would take on a bigger role on a different team. So I'm not sure if he sees himself. I'm sure he liked playing here, but I'm sure he can see himself possibly putting up more points somewhere else because of more ice time, more power play time, all that stuff. So it'll be interesting to watch. But I think you absolutely have to try and retain Max Domi first priority, and then you move along the line and see if the salary cap allows for it.
Yeah, and Bertuzzi, I mean, you kind of mentioned it. He didn't have a decent year, but points-wise and things like that, he didn't have the best year here with the Maple Leafs. So maybe he'll look to go somewhere else unless the Leafs give him the contract that he was hoping for. But I agree. I think 4 years, 17, that sounds pretty good to me. Maybe it'll be a 4x4, which would also work pretty well for the Leafs. I think it would work out for everybody because he does want to be a Toronto Maple Leaf. That'll wrap it up. Let us know in the comments what your thoughts are on this. And out of the two, which one would you prefer to have going forward, especially if you're going to do a bit of an overhaul with the core force. This is going to be a pretty important part. Make sure to keep you updated. Thank you guys for watching. We'll see you soon.